In the last part, Lloyd has finally reclaimed the Marteis wetlands, but for administrative purposes, the northern parts belong to Viscount Lacona and the southern part belonged to Baron Frontera. It was obvious for Lacona to show up and assert his ownership of the wetlands as soon as it was reclaimed. He was trying to grab a hold of rich, fertile land without putting in any effort of his own. The knight tells Lloyd that this land belongs to Viscount Lacona. Lloyd was angered by this, and tells the knight to shut his mouth, as he was talking in between two nobles. Everybody was shocked. Lloyd introduces himself to Viscount Lacona as the son of Baron Frontera, Lloyd Frontera. The Viscount knew about his crude behavior in the past, and demanded to see his father, as he was not interested to talk to him. Lloyd ignores him. The Viscount was angered by this, and asks him if he was deaf or something. Lloyd tells him that it was like the buzzing of some pesky fly. Lacona searches for the fly. The knight tells him that he was referring a fly to the Viscount himself, which agitated him. Lloyd tells him that according to the Land Act of the Kingdom, Title 321, Special Exemption regarding the development of barren land, he explains to him that according to this law, if any land that is abandoned for more than 100 years, without any activities on it, then the one who develops the land is the owner of the land. And lastly, the land must have at least produced at least one harvest of a crop specified by law. The Viscount was shocked. Also, Javier realized that's why that day, Lloyd asked him to plant the seeds. Lloyd congratulates the Viscount for witnessing the first ever harvest of the Martz's wetlands. The Viscount is checkmated as if Lyopt has already prepared for him to arrive in the past. Lloyd gives him the first crop he harvested and with an angry face asks him to get off his land. Lacona, angered and without any point to make, decides to leave with his men. Javier asks Lloyd if he hears a prophecy from somewhere that they were coming. Lloyd tells him that he has already dealt with people in the Oast just like him, the leeches trying to steal someone else's hard work. The workers raised their hands and were praising Lord Lloyd, who saved them from another crisis. Lloyd makes a bad face and tells the worker to work there quietly. After some days, there were heavy rains pouring on the Marteis wetlands. Lloyd was inspecting the working of the drainage system from a distance. They have also made a water wheel for better drainage, but still, he has to see to it that there is no problem in the drainage system. Javier joins Lloyd and lifts an umbrella to his head. After some time, the dark clouds vanished, and the drainage system built by him was working really well. The system informs him that this was a monumental achievement in construction, and he has left an indelible mark in the history of civil engineering on the Laurasia continent. As a result, he has been awarded a large amount of RP. Also, his skills have been upgraded to the next level. Lloyd stands up and receives more notifications of the approval rating with the Baron, Baroness, Javier, and other townspeople risen. Lloyd was very happy and proud of his achievement, and now thinks of starting the next stage. Meanwhile, in the Lacona Viscounty, Viscount Lacona is furious with one of his men, as he informs him that the land is fully reclaimed, and realizes that he has lost the land. And finally, the Marteis wetlands will become the golden goose laying golden eggs for Lloyd. The Viscount was super jealous as half of that was his own land and asked the servant to bring him the supervisor of his dye workshop. A few days later, Lloyd wakes up at his mansion with a heavy head but still thinks of going to work as always. He tells Javier that he was heading out for work. Lloyd notices that Javier was looking tired and asks him. Javier never experienced such a severe headache and Lloyd too had the same. He thinks and realizes something was off. Even Ms. Emily, the maid of the Baron's estate, had a bad headache. Also, everyone in the town had a severe headache, including the cows. It was affecting all the townspeople. Also, the animals are avoiding the water. Lloyd speculates that there is something wrong with the water, and realizes that it has to do something with the Ladona berry used for their dye, which makes Lloyd really pissed off. At the Baron's mansion, the Viscount's knight had a meeting with the Baron. He asks him to give back the Marteis wetlands, and if they do so they will stop dumping their dye waste waters into the main river. The Baron is agitated and asks him if he is trying to blackmail them. The knight confirms it, and tells the Baron that he was really blackmailing them. The Baron is furious at him and threatens to go to the court. The knight tells him to do as you please, but it will take at least 2 years before a verdict. With all legal fees and paying for new drinking water, the Baron will return bankrupt. The knight was about to leave the room, but the Baron tells him that his son and his people have put blood and sweat into the land, and he will not give the LN to such low lives as him. The knight bows down with a smirk on his face and was about to leave the room, but instead, he gets hit hard on his face as Lloyd opens the door. Lloyd tells the Baron about the condition of the townspeople and also tells him that the neighboring Viscounty has been tampering with the river water, and he had come there to discuss the countermeasures for it. Lloyd is shocked as the knight comes yelling at him from behind. He was unaware that there was someone in the room other than them and taunts the knight. The knight was furious and draws his sword and asks Lloyd for a duel, but he was easily destroyed by Lloyd with the help of his iron shovel, just like in the good old days. Lloyd keeps on beating the knight. It seemed like the Baron was also enjoying the duel. At the Viscounty, Lacona is furious with his knight as he returns with a beat-up face. The knight asks for his forgiveness, but instead, he is surprised as Lacona tells him that he did a very good job getting all beat up. Now they can use this in the court and make a very cruel face. Lloyd in the barony knew what was he thinking, and out of habit, he makes the same face. Looks like all the villains have this face in common. Lloyd tells the soldiers that they will blow them out of water soon, and cheers everyone. He plans to solve their drinking water problems first. They made a pool, and got Hammond to bring in all the water needed. Now that the drinking water problem is solved temporarily, Lloyd tells Javier that they to find some permanent alternative, and tells him that they will construct a water supply system to bring in water from Lake Capua in the eastern mountains. But the distance is enormous, and due to this, they will face a huge loss. But Lloyd tells him that he has other plans to make sure that they will get enough money to complete the construction. This time it will be 100 times profit. A few months later, Viscount Lacona is all stressed out about something. His servant tells the Viscount that Baron Frontera's eldest son has come there to visit him. Viscount was furious and tells the servant to kick them from there. But the servant insisted to meet them as he was there to help Viscount with the problems he was facing. He finally accepts to meet Lloyd. He asks Lloyd what did he wanted from him. Lloyd tells him that he was there to help the Viscount with his problems. The Viscount tries to hide it from Lloyd, but Lloyd makes a face, tells him to be honest, and tells him that he can save his dye workshop. The Viscount was furious with him as he already knew that Lloyd was the one who was behind all this from the start. Lloyd tells him that due to the wastewater they dumped in the water supply, they had to wring the water all the way from Lake Capua, due to which they suffered a huge loss. The Viscount interrupts Lloyd and tells him to not talk about nonsense, and straight come to the point. Lloyd tells him that there was a huge valley in the middle of the construction, and the only thing they could do was to make a bridge across the valley, so they have to blast off a lot of limestones, to use as the building materials, but some of it accidentally ended up covering the bottom of the valley floor. And they ended up exposing all the limestone bedrock as well. The Viscount is more furious now and tells him, "What does it even have to do with my workshop?" Lloyd explains to him that the water from the valley flows to his dye workshop, and due to all that lime in the water, his dying words were corrupted. Lacona is furious at him and threatens him that he will sue him at the royal court. Lloyd tells him he can do as he pleases, but it will take at least 2 years for the verdict. Until then everybody will forget about the Ladona dyes, or someone else might just undertake his spot. The Viscount was now getting really worried about his future. Lloyd gets up from his couch and tells the Viscount that all his queries have now been answered and he must leave now. The Viscount is furious and threatens Lloyd that he will make him pay the damages many times over. As Javier and Lloyd were walking, Javier asks Lloyd if there is something that he did not understand there. Lloyd asks him what was it. Javier tells him that Lloyd has now provoked the Viscounty to the court, and he will fight until the bitter end. Also, he has many connections at the capital, and it will also ensure that they will suffer a huge loss if they try to fight it legally. Lloyd interrupts him and tells him to just wait and watch. 1 month later, at the Baron's mansion, the Viscount was on his knees and was asking Lloyd to save his dye workshop. Lloyd taunts him and asks him what happened to the connection of his in the royal court. The Viscount tells him that it was his arrogance which blinded him and is deeply sorry for what he did. Lloyd tells him that he had no interest in his words and what shall he do. The Viscount is crying, and on his knees he begged all his pride in front of Lloyd to save him. Lloyd asked him if his pride was even worth 1/10 of the price of the gold coin. Lacona tells him that even so, he would sell that off 10,000 times over for his mercy. Lloyd tells him that what he wants is not his apology. He just wants a simple signature on this contract. He tells him that if he signs this contract he will supply water to his workshop in a week. Lacona was terrified when he read the contract. He was furious and tells Lloyd that the price he was asking was simply too much. Lloyd interrupts him and tells him that he was the one who taught him that water was not free. Lacona had no choice but to sign the contract. After the meeting, Lloyd hands over the contract to the Baron. The Baron was shocked when he sees such a large sum of money he will get every month from the Lacona Viscounty. Lloyd assured him that there is no problem with the contract as the generous Viscount signed it by himself. Javier thinks of Lloyd as the devil who is going to torture Lacona to his very end as he did not specify an date or time of the contract. The Baron tells Lloyd that he has some good news for him, but he stops as he sees the terrifying face of Lloyd. Lloyd tells him that it was nothing and he was just happy with the contract. The Baron continues and tells Lloyd that the old, beat-up treasure they received from the Orc tribe, Count Cremo sends his word that he will purchase it at a handsome price. Lloyd finds it strange as a big shot like him is trying to purchase brand new ones and still, he is going for the old beat-up artifacts. The Baron tells him that he didn't know the details but he only knows that there is a huge statue the Count wants to construct. In the Cremo, city of commerce, Count Cremo is having a view of the vast ocean from his castle. And out of nowhere a huge lobster-type creature which was named Gigatitan comes out of the water, which scared the Count. At the mansion, Javier informs the Barrow that they will be leaving for Cremo after the work on the water supply is finished. And also tells him that Lloyd will have just 10 men with him during the journey. The Baron tells him that he understands him. Javier tells him not to worry about him as he will watch over him closely. The Baron tells him when in the past Viscount Lacona came to take half of the reclaimed wetlands. If it was in the past, the Baron would have been terrified and simply handed it over. But after watching Lloyd's efforts, he found some courage of his own. Javier tells him he was the kindest and warmest person more so than anyone else. The Baron appreciates the kind words and tells him that even so, it does not make him a good leader. A good leader should have the qualities, just like Lloyd right now. Javier thinks of Lloyd as the money-making monster. The Baron tells Javier that his mission is no longer to monitor Lloyd, and from now on he is assigned to protect Lloyd, the heir of the land. Javier accepts this with pride, but he still has some doubt in his mind regarding Lloyd. We see a flashback to when Javier was just a kid. The Baron asked Javier what did he want to become when he grow up. Javier tells him that he will become a knight and protect his lord. The Baron thanks him and tells him that one day he will become the world's strongest knight, and later he gave a wooden sword which he had craved by himself, but it was broken by the young Lloyd. Until this day Javier has not forgotten it. At night, Lloyd is waiting for Javier to sing his lullaby and to make him sleep. He sings the lullaby and makes Javier sleep. In his sleep, Javier remembers all the past events and was really happy for him. In the dark night, both Javier and Lloyd very having a great time sleeping. Out of nowhere someone opens the window and tries to stab Lloyd, but Javier senses this and quickly gets his sword and leaps towards the knight. Javier sliced the blade in half and took care of the knight by himself. At the construction, Javier informs Lloyd that he has handed the man to Viscount Lacona. Javier tells him that he was targeted because the Viscount has been paying a lot for the water and probably he fired his knight first. And he tried to kill him to get his revenge. Lloyd was being ignorant. Javier asks him if he knew this from the start, and why didn't he take any countermeasures for this. Lloyd tells him that he did not care as Javier was always by his side. Lloyd tells him that he trusts Javier more than anyone. Javier is touched by his words and is confused about what to say and makes a disappointed face. The approval rating Javier has increased by 15 points. Lloyd tells him that they will be able to finish the construction by the next day, and then they can head to Cremo. After the construction was over, they were heading to Cremo. Lloyd was asleep while Javier was carrying him on the horse. He didn't like it so he just shook his shoulder and woke up Lloyd. Lloyd asks him if he hit him but Javier denied it, and they both started to argue over it. Lloyd jumps down his horse and asks Javier to teach him how to ride a horse. And out of nowhere, the system informs Lloyd that the rumors of him building the first waterworks on the continent is spreading fast. Also his reputation as an engineer has increased. His name will go down in the construction history of this kingdom and the continent. Due to this he receives a huge amount of RP. Lloyd was really proud and starts to laugh, but Javier thinks that he has lost his mind as he is angry 1 minute and starts to laugh the other. The journey to Cremo was not a short one. As they approached, winter drew near, and they finally reached Cremo by the midwinters. Count Cremo gives Lloyd a warm welcome to the county and introduces himself. Both Javier and Lloyd bow down to the Count and greets him. The Count is surprised by how different he looked from his imagination. He thought that he was an engineer and he will have similar characteristics to his, but here it was the opposite of what he thought, as he was looking so noble. And then the Count approached Javier, as he thought he was the talented engineer of the Frontera barony. Lloyd tries to get his attention, but he is ignored by the Count. The Count asks Javier, thinking as if he was Lloyd, and offers him the marriage proposal for his daughter. Lloyd interrupts their conversation, due to which the Count is furious at him. Lloyd is tensed, and the system too taunts him. It took some time for the Count to understand who the real son of Baron was. He slips it as a joke and laughs and asks for his forgiveness. Lloyd was super depressed due to this. The Count tells him that it was his fault too, as he was born with a servant's face. Also, the system taunts him the same. Count Cremo was quite an important figure in the Night of Blood and Iron. In it, Javier becomes a wanted criminal after beheading the moneylenders Shiloh and Meatloaf. Javier goes into hiding and is eventually arrested by the Count in Cremo. But Count was kind and ends up providing a lot of support to Javier in many ways. Back to the present. The Count tells Lloyd that he wants to build a statue in the sea, and that is why he wanted to buy the old artifacts. Lloyd asks him why he needs to build a statue in the sea. The Count tells him that the trade in Cremo was in decline due to the Gigaton that appeared a few years ago in the ocean. Due to its fear, people are scared to trade with Cremo anymore. In the novel too, the same happened, and due to this the Count faced a major crisis, but he was unable to remember the Gigaton in the novel. The Count tells him that he has done a lot of research and discovered that the mermaids are the strongest warriors who rule over the seas, and the mermaids are the objects of fear for the Gigaton, and that's why he was going to build a statue of the mermaid to obstruct fear on the Gigaton. But Count has already given up on this idea, as they have to increase the height of the seabed for the base of the statue, and due to this the ships will not have enough space. But still, he will buy the artifacts as promised. Lloyd tells him that he can build a base without disturbing the water levels. Just like that, we see Lloyd and Javier on a boat surveying the seabed. Due to the winter, Lloyd's eyes burned on his face, and Javier had a smirky look on his face, so Lloyd asked him why did he look so happy. Javier tells him that it's the first time that watching someone suffer has made him happy. Lloyd was depressed due to the cold. Javier asks him if he had checked all the details of the contract, and if it was really going to happen, to build up the ground vertically up from the seabed, unless they are going to use some kind of magic. Lloyd tells him it was possible with the magic of cement, but the question was how is he supposed to make cement? As they reach the port, a beautiful girl asks him if he was Master Lloyd, and she wants to give him a letter. Lloyd was confused. The girl tells them that she is Christine and she was the daughter of the Count, and the day before she saw Lloyd walking in the courtyard, and asks him to accept the letter, but instead of giving it to Lloyd, she offers it to Javier instead. Lloyd was devastated, but he already thought that this was going to happen. Javier takes the letter and puts it into his coat. The girl was happy and runs away cheerfully. Lloyd was furious. Javier tries to go away, but Lloyd asks him what was this. He was really frustrated, and Javier asks him what was wrong with that, and asks him if he had not received a letter before. It was right on the spot, and Javier is shocked and confused about what was he supposed to say. He sincerely wishes Lloyd the best of luck. Lloyd returns to his dome and is visibly not jealous because he is going to make a lot of money and be rich. He was interrupted by Cremo. Lloyd quickly puts up a happy face, and Cremo informs him that he has bought all the important materials he asked for, but he was unable to fetch the volcanic ash. Lloyd thinks a bit, as volcanic ash is necessary for the Roman-style cement due to its durability. The Count tells him that if he needs volcanic ash he will have to wait 1.5 years and he cannot afford that long. Lloyd assures the Count that he will find another way. He thinks of it, and figures out that he has to make the Portland cement, but he was unable to remember the ingredients for it. He has now tried 130 different types of mixture, but he is unable to create the Portland cement. As he was working tirelessly, all three of them watched him and were sad, as due to his work he was not able to pay attention to them. They all jump on him and tried to get his attention, and he yells at them. In his past life so he had a dog pet, but he was unable to give it as much time, and one day it died. And he regrets it to this day. Lloyd finally takes all of them and gives them a tight hug, and takes them out for a walk. The three of them were really happy. Lloyd thinks of himself as he was an awful person, and asks them for his forgiveness as he was only using them as heavy machinery. He kneels down and thanks them for their help. The mystical creatures acknowledged his sincere feelings and they considered him a family, which enabled him a new upgrade to one of them. Podong and Hamong tell Lloyd to use the skill on Bangul, and Lloyd uses the skill on Bangul. A light show begins, and with a huge light the screen informs him that Bangul has gained a new skill, Volcanic Blast. Lloyd is really happy as it is just what he needs to make cement. Later that day, a huge explosion occurred near the Count. Everybody was shocked, even the Count peeked from the window. The explosion let out a huge cloud of volcanic ash. It was Lloyd and Javier who were testing the new ability of Bangul. Lloyd was happy to see the ash and tells Javier. But Javier was unable to hear anything. Lloyd tells Javier that he was ugly and Javier replied that he was not ugly as Lloyd. And now, thanks to Bangul, construction can be really possible. The first stage was to build and install a giant diaper to filter the volcanic ash. That day, everybody present in the county, there witnessed the power of the son of the Frontera Baron and was shocked. The Count is impressed with Lloyd and thinks to keep a close eye on him till the construction was over, and then give a detailed report to His Majesty the King. The second step was to make a caisson to pour the cement onto, and then place it in the sea. Then use Hamong to one-shot the water to remove the water from the caisson. Stage 3 was to cover the bottom of the caisson with friction poles. Javier was waiting for more poles to arrive and Lloyd seemed like he was expecting something from Javier. Javier asked him what was he seeking. Lloyd tells him that he should have a complaint like he usually does. Javier throws the hammer down and tells Lloyd that he is a knight and he should not hammer. Lloyd, as usual, tells him that he is the knight that escorts him. If he did not hammer the post and then, the Baron will not be able to clear the debts. Lloyd uses his usual sentimental dialogues and Javier has no option but to do the work. After the posts were in, now the next stage begins. Use the Bengal steel dung to build a steel frame and then finally pour in the long-awaited cement. Once the cement is hardened, dismantle the caisson and finally, the artificial sea platform is ready. The Count is impressed by his work and asks him if the platform will able to support the huge statue's weight, and also tells him that if it succeeds to do so he will pay a huge amount of construction fees to him. The statue has been established, and there was a grand celebration for this achievement. The Count introduced the people to Lloyd, and this time too, to his luck, people went before Javier thinking that he was Lloyd due to his noble looks. The Count once more laughs it off and introduced people to the real Lloyd. At some distance, there is a huge creature in the water. As it surfaces it is clear that it was the Gigatoton. The huge creature sees the statue of the mermaid and rushed to attack it as if it was only one mermaid. Everybody was having a good time at the party. Javier was having his fruity, but he feels something in the ocean, and Lloyd asks him what was the matter. Javier tells him that something is heading in this direction. Javier tells him that it is extraordinarily fast, and has a size of at least Hamong at his biggest. Lloyd is really scared now. He knew what was coming. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching.